There is always so much more going on than what we hear, especially when we think we are listening intently and we are really good at hearing everything. I am Tavish Cardiff. It is Listening Week at Our Raw Materials, so let's talk about the listening pillar. This one is spiritual. Listening is, consider like our awareness of listening as kind of the baseline, as the path of least resistance, let's say. When we listen with intention and with, just stopping and like paying attention to what's actually going on in the background, there's all kinds of things we can zero in on and sounds we can identify. There's also a running dialogue that is in our head. There's a soundtrack always playing. There are all kinds of repetitive sounds that our inner workings make that we don't necessarily tap into, but we could. If we wanted to pay attention to, say, the rhythm of our heart, we could get to a place where we're practiced enough to do that and notice differences. So if you were someone who had AFib or something like that, you could immediately pick up on the fact that your heart's out of rhythm. I think we are capable of this type of identifying in so many ways. So there's vibrations with listening. And as we gather the information around us, we pull in the vibrations of the things that are familiar or that we can identify or that we already know something about, because as we talk about, our egos keep us very practical about protecting ourselves and about self-confidence and knowing what's up and being aware of our environment and what's going on. So sometimes it's very difficult for our ego to have this conversation about soul listening, because the ego really wants to point out all the ways it does listen. And it does its job so well. But if it were working in tandem with the soul energy, which I think was its original purpose, at least according to the listening from internally that I do, there's a lot more power available and a lot more at our fingertips than we in ear, right, a lot more in our ear than we are giving credit. And we are letting this internal ego voice kind of drive our beliefs and behaviors. And we've let that happen for so long that as humans, we've just become accustomed to it as if it is the natural order. And I like to point out right here, if you're listening to the universe, man is contrary to natural order. The fact that we have a separate brain that doesn't identify in exactly the same way, we can make an autonomous choice against nature. I'm not talking about the things we all share in common, the rhythms that we definitely do vibrate with all together, and the many, many, many things that connect us to nature. But I'm talking about the thing that actually keeps us believing that we have some separate control from it, or we can manage or conquer that natural order. And I don't think I'm doing a very good job explaining it. I think we each really need to listen from within to gather the truth and the benefit that comes from just accepting a connection to something larger and accepting that we don't hear everything. As I said, listening is a practice. And the more practiced we become at paying attention to not only the background stuff, the things around us, the soundtrack, all of these different voices that come together, start paying attention to each of those on top of, and as well as the fear voice that has gotten so loud within each of us, then we start to really see the symphony of listening come together in all of its creative beauty and glory. And, I don't know what to call that space other than the ideal playground that we call it here. It is pure creation, but it's teaching your individuated self to use your inner imagination, your inner creator, and line those up and remember that you are a part of the larger creation that we all live in, and that your belief system is just as powerful in there as anyone else's. And if there's anything that you would like to see changed or different in that environment, listening is where we find the spaces to interject words, thoughts, and just, heart releases into the areas that we want that sound to get absorbed. In that absorption, there's the awareness that we each have, among the common beliefs that we share, our own individuated sense of self and our, just the way that we were formed, the things that come from our mentors, our music, our food, and how that built our mental structure, and then how we hold our ego. How healthy is our ego? How much fear is there really residing in our ego? And listening to those types of things, quantifying the types of thoughts that we have rather than just identifying with the ones that are the most present. I can tell you in my own experience, I'm starting to state things as I feel them, and I'm starting to state things that other people are having reactions to because somehow they believe if I'm stating them out loud, they must be really important or really pressing. And I can't tell you how many times I have to say to someone, okay, I just said that because I needed to get rid of it. It's like a little cloud I'm just pushing away. But especially dealing with grief like I am right now, the investment in how I'm doing, or, people wanting to make sure I'm okay and things like that, comes across in just fleeting emotional awarenesses that I have and state out loud, so that I clear the space that takes up the emotion and the fear and the pain and the ongoing heaviness of grief, and I can feel that lightness of connection and spirit. And it's a lonely walk between the ego and the soul, and I think we each walk it alone, because somewhere in there is the awareness that we are part of something bigger, and that our individuated self is no less special because of that. But we notice that individuated self is a projection or an extension of the larger energy that is so creative, so loving, lacking judgment, lacking emotion, all of the things that we can't even conceive of being. But I think that comes with getting into the practice of listening to all these different vibrations I've just mentioned. And I'll let it go with that so that each of you can identify for yourself what I'm talking about. I don't want to define these things for you. I want you to be able to go into your own inner listening and, recognize your own space. I did an exercise with a student earlier this week, and I gave her 3 rocks that were the exact same type of rock. And I just wanted her to feel and let me know the difference in the vibration of each of the 3. They look the same. They, everything about them seemingly the same. But they each had a different tone. They each had a different feeling. So they share a couple of principles, but they're all going to be different in their expression. And I think that is where we find our missteps right now in things like generations, age, politics, race, religion, all of the taboo, hard subjects that we are in such conflict about. But if we could just listen to what is truly, honestly valuable to us, instead of reacting in fear to the things that just bother us or make us uncomfortable, we would find a lot more space to breathe. Want a little help with practice guidance for this week? Keep a tally of your negative thoughts, or the thoughts that don't serve you. Not necessarily what they are, but how many in relation to all of your thoughts. Is the voice that tells you how you're doing largely positive or largely negative? Start paying attention to what each of those little pieces mean, and give yourself the grace to get in touch with the many, many vibrations that come to us naturally every day. Let your heart open around them. Let yourself feel them. It's okay to have your feelings hurt. It's okay to feel like your ego is being challenged or asked to look at things differently than it's been taught is okay. it's okay to want to protect yourself in any moment. So meet yourself where you are and trust that with practice, your listening skills will bring you into better creative manifestation. I will be back next week to talk about values and ideals. Until then, enjoy this week and open your heart for listening.